Hi, welcome to our channel. Good news. We all know that because Samsung's 4nm chip yield rate was only 35%, Qualcomm gave the widely used TSMC foundry the contract to produce the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus chip. The highly anticipated TSMC 4nm process Snapdragon 8 Plus CPU made its official premiere at the 2022 Snapdragon Night on May 20th in the evening. The newest mobile processor platform, the Snapdragon 8 Plus, was formally unveiled by Qualcomm. The performance has increased by 10%, and power consumption has decreased by 30%, as compared to the standard Snapdragon 8 model made by Samsung. The Snapdragon 8 Plus' degree of power usage is more intriguing. According to statistics provided by Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 8 Plus' CPU and GPU energy efficiency has dropped by up to 30% compared to the Snapdragon 8, and the SoC's total power usage has lowered by 15%. TSMC is solely responsible for the Snapdragon 8 Plus' advancement. What does this chip actually do? Is the market for Qualcomm's flagship chip steady now that TSMC has a 4nm process? Official launch of the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus CPU. After a new naming system was introduced, the Snapdragon 8 is the first product in Qualcomm's product line. It offers the best experience in 6 technologies, including Snapdragon Connect connectivity, Snapdragon Sound Audio, Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Snapdragon Sight Imaging, and Snapdragon Secure Security. Snapdragon Smart is also the first device in the world to support 3GPP/R16 5G solutions, 8K HDR video shooting, Bluetooth CD lossless audio, and more than 50 game features. The Snapdragon 8's heat creation and power consumption have drawn criticism since its introduction, and the terminal models are also strong heat dissipators. This time, the Snapdragon 8 Plus was unveiled, and while it enhanced performance, it also heat production and energy use were reduced. First of all, TSMC's 4nm manufacturing technology was substituted for Samsung's 4nm for the Snapdragon 8 Plus. The latter's performance was noticeably superior even if the official did not give any precise signs. Major manufacturers have stated their intentions to release Qualcomm Snapdragon processors, which Qualcomm will appreciate every time it delivers its flagship chip. However, unlike other releases, it has been discovered that major mobile phone makers are promoting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 because of its ability to dissipate heat. As a result of manufacturers' intense focus on improving heat dissipation performance, nothing can be said. Heat dissipation materials do not need to be accumulated if the power consumption is consistent and there is no heat dissipation issue. Manufacturers have evolved into Dragon training masters, yet results vary. Chip yield and power usage have a specific connection. The 35% yield rate for Samsung's 4nm chips is bad news for both makers and consumers. Customers are more likely to receive secondary items, and manufacturers will spend more time achieving capacity objectives. Therefore, Qualcomm's strategy is to switch foundries and give TSMC the order for the more sophisticated Snapdragon 8 Plus processors. Finally, this TSMC OEM Snapdragon 8 Plus chip is here. On the evening of May 20th, Qualcomm presented the Snapdragon Night, during which the eagerly anticipated Snapdragon 8 Plus and Snapdragon 7 mobile platforms were made public. The Snapdragon 8 Plus processor, an improved version of Qualcomm's current Snapdragon 8 chip, will be more notable in comparison. How does Qualcomm address the mobile phone SoC's heating issue? There are 2 options to address the heating issue with mobile phone SoCs, either employing a bigger chip area or a more sophisticated manufacturing process. For Qualcomm, utilizing the most cutting-edge TSMC technology offers a simpler and more efficient strategy. The industry believes that Samsung's process is to blame for Qualcomm's recent struggles to control the power consumption of its flagship mobile phone SoC, which also raises expectations for TSMC's rendition of Qualcomm's flagship CPU. The Snapdragon 8 Plus uses TSMC's 4nm manufacturing and maintains its Cortex-A710 Big Core, 3 Cortex-X2 Performance Super Core, and 4 Cortex-A510 Tiny Core architecture. The Performance Super Core's primary frequency has been raised to 3.2 GHz, and multi-core performance has improved by 10%. In contrast, the Samsung 4nm processes 3.0 GHz plus 2.5 GHz plus 1.8 GHz Snapdragon 8 CPU frequency. 6.7%, 10%, and 12.2% more Snapdragon 8 Plus frequency increases are made, respectively. The TSMC 4nm process has a MediaTek Dimensity 9000 frequency of 3.05 GHz plus 2.85 GHz plus 1.8 GHz. The Snapdragon 8 Plus has frequencies that are 5, 3, and 12.2% higher, respectively. It is more exciting to anticipate the Snapdragon 8 Plus GPU performance. The battery consumption of the Snapdragon 8 Plus is decreased by up to 30%, and the GPU frequency is 10% greater than that of the Snapdragon 8. According to the official test results, the Snapdragon 8 Plus GPU performance is really impressive. The Snapdragon 8 Plus performance has grown by 10% over the previous generation, but the battery consumption has decreased by up to 30%. The CPU's core clock has also increased to 3.2 GHz, while the GPU's performance has increased by 10%. Even while a 10% performance gain might not seem like much, we must recognize that the chip's ability to reach 4 nanometers is not without difficulty. Additionally, the power consumption has been decreased by up to 30%, which has significantly reduced the fire dragon characteristics. Additionally, mobile phone makers may concentrate on performance improvement and chip platform adaptation while putting less effort into heat dissipation. Additionally, adding more chips has improved energy efficiency. This microprocessor clearly required a lot of consideration from Qualcomm. Is the market for Qualcomm's flagship chip steady now that the 4nm technology from TSMC has gained entrance support? Will TSMC's 4nm process help Qualcomm's flagship chip market share increase? The market for flagship chips is heavily influenced by Qualcomm, and nearly all mobile phone makers use Qualcomm's flagship SoC. Every single one of them has worked with Qualcomm, with the exception of one Apple-developed CPU maker. Even Apple uses Qualcomm's 5G baseband. But you'll discover that MediaTek, which is also making a splash in the market for flagship chips, has exceeded Qualcomm's market share. Numerous domestic firms have endorsed the Dimensity 9000, which is also 4 nanometers. Qualcomm's flagship processor is no longer the sole option with MediaTek's benchmark chip. In terms of market share, MediaTek earned the biggest SoC chip shipments in China's smartphone market in the first quarter of this year, with a market share of 41.2%, compared to Qualcomm's market share of 35.9%. MediaTek held the top spot in the chip market data for the most recent quarters and months. The market for flagship CPU chips has unmistakably been joined by MediaTek, who offers a robust product lineup similar to Qualcomm's. Qualcomm certainly has no plans to stop there, though. Will Qualcomm's flagship chip market share improve with the approval of TSMC's 4nm process and the consolidation of close collaboration with local manufacturers? Whether the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus CPU is indeed performant will determine this. From the standpoint of the manufacturer, if it can outperform the Dimensity 9000, collaboration will undoubtedly expand. The market's manufacturers are all dealing with the same issue, and they have completed the necessary design and optimization. Folding displays, under-screen cameras, systems, etc. have ideal solutions. As a result, it has led to a rather visible market homogeneity issue. But there is still space for improvement if we can start with chip performance. In such a situation, Qualcomm may receive additional orders. It should be noted that MediaTek is also one of TSMC's significant clients, so this does not imply that the market for flagship chips is fully solid. Since Qualcomm uses TSMC as its foundry, if MediaTek can create better chips in the future, they will also be distributed by TSMC. Qualcomm has to recognize that capturing the market requires more than just releasing chips. Instead, it's crucial to determine whether the semiconductor products it introduces can succeed in the marketplace. Overall, Qualcomm declared that the latest generation of Snapdragon 8 Plus has been made available and that it performs much better than the standard Snapdragon 8 model. Qualcomm will feel more confident in the flagship chip market with the help of this processor. It is unclear whether the market is steady, nevertheless, given the presence of MediaTek and its current market position. There is no reason to worry about the market if Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Plus processor is indeed excellent. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.